The silence was wrong. Anyone who had spent even a single day on the African savanna would have felt it immediately. There was no frantic chatter of weaver birds stitching their nests into the thorny acacias. No constant hum of insects vibrating in the heat. Not even the whisper of wind through the dry grass. Just a heavy, unnatural stillness, thick enough to crawl under the skin and tighten the chest. The midday sun burned mercilessly overhead, bleaching the land into harsh shades of gold and dust. Heat shimmered above the cracked earth, warping the horizon into trembling mirages. Dark stones absorbed the sun until they were too hot to touch. There was no shade, no refuge, just open land stretching endlessly in every direction. Then came the sound that it was not the deep roar of a territorial lion, not the sharp cry of a hunting eagle. It was something far more disturbing, thin, frantic, raw. A wail that carried the unmistakable shape of grief, high-pitched, broken, desperate. The kind of sound that did not belong in a place ruled by predators and survival. The center of a small clearing ringed by thorny brush. A baby mountain gorilla clung to the body of his mother. The infant could not have been more than 4 months old. His fur was still soft and downy, his limbs small and uncertain. His wide brown eyes darted with confusion as he tugged at the dark, unmoving shape beneath him. Tiny hands pulled at her fur. He shook her shoulder. He pressed his face against her chest and cried again, louder this time, begging for movement that would never come. The mother lay on her side in the red dust. Nearly 200 kilograms of muscle and bone reduced to stillness. Her once glossy coat was dull, matted with dirt. Flies already gathered, their iridescent bodies circling wounds that stained the soil beneath her. The earth drank the blood greedily. The infant did not understand death. He did not know why the arms that carried him through the forest no longer lifted him. Why the body that kept him warm at night was growing stiff and cold. He bit gently at her ear, the way he always did to wake her. He pressed his cheek to her neck, searching for her scent. What he found instead was something sharp and unfamiliar. 2 perfect holes marred her torso. Burned fur. Torn flesh. The baby touched one with a curious finger, then sniffed his hand. The smell made him recoil. Gunpowder, blood, something bitter and wrong. He sneezed, whimpered, and curled himself against her side, trembling despite the heat. Hours passed. The sun climbed and began its slow descent. The shadow of the gorilla's body shifted across the ground. The baby tried to nurse, but there was nothing. He attempted to climb onto her back, waiting for her to adjust him into the familiar position. She did not move. Eventually, exhausted, he lay still, small fingers tangled in lifeless fur. That was when the lion arrived at first. It was only a blur on the horizon, distorted by heat waves. Then the shape sharpened, growing larger, heavier, unmistakable. An adult male in his prime, his mane dark and thick around a scarred face. Each step was silent but powerful, the earth responding with subtle tremors. He had not eaten in 2 days. A failed zebra hunt still lingered in his muscles, the frustration sharp, the hunger deeper. His nostrils flared as the scent of blood reached him, fresh, undeniable. His golden eyes locked onto the clearing. A dead gorilla, and something small, alive, pressed against her. The lion advanced with the fluid certainty of an apex predator. Muscles rolled beneath his tawny coat. His gaze never wavered. The infant gorilla heard him. A sound too heavy to ignore. He lifted his head and met the lion's eyes. For a heartbeat, instinct screamed at him to flee. Instead, he stood. His legs shook violently, nearly folding beneath his weight, but he forced himself upright. He stepped forward and placed his small body between the approaching predator and his mother's corpse. His lips pulled back, revealing tiny teeth. His hands slammed weakly against the ground. An imitation of the chest beating he had seen adults perform. He screamed. It was not a cry for help. It was a challenge. The lion stopped. He tilted his head, studying the infant with unnerving intensity. This should have been over in seconds. 1 strike, 1 bite, easy food, survival, but something in the baby's defiance, his refusal to move, his loyalty to a body that no longer responded, cut through the lion's hunger like a blade. Slowly, the lion lowered his massive head, not to attack, in the silent language of the wild. It was a gesture of acknowledgement, The infant's strength finally gave out. His arms dropped. His cry faded into a thin whimper. Then, guided by something no rule of nature could explain, he walked toward the lion. Step by trembling step, he reached out and touched the lion's paw. No pain came. Encouraged, the baby grabbed the thick mane with both hands and climbed, clumsy, desperate, until he managed to pull himself onto the lion's back. He buried his face against the warm fur and went still. For the first time since his mother fell, he stopped crying. The lion stood motionless. The hunger was still there. The body of the gorilla lay untouched behind him. But the weight on his back, small, fragile, trusting, changed something ancient and buried. He turned away from the carcass and began to walk toward a place he had not seen in years, toward lights in the distance, toward humans who had once chosen healing over bullets. As the sun bled into the horizon and the lion carried his impossible burden through the darkening savanna, a single question hung unanswered in the air. What would happen when he reached them? Night settled over the savanna like a held breath. The moon rose pale and distant, casting silver across the grasslands as the lion moved steadily forward. Each step was deliberate, not hurried, not cautious, purposeful. The infant gorilla clung to his mane, small fingers tangled deep, his body rising and falling with the rhythm of the lion's stride. Exhaustion had finally claimed him. He slept, pressed against warmth that was not his mother's, but was alive. The lion did not deviate from his course. That he passed through corridors of thorn and open plains where hyenas watched from afar, puzzled by what they saw. A male lion, alone, carrying prey that was not prey, carrying life. None challenged him. Something in his posture warned them away. This was not a hunt. This was not weakness. This was something else entirely. Hours later, the smell of smoke reached his nose, then light. Not firelight from a brush blaze, but steady, contained illumination. The hum of generators. The faint metallic scent of machines. Human territory. The lion slowed. Ahead, surrounded by a rough perimeter fence and floodlights, stood the Kitala Wildlife Field Station, a remote outpost used for medical triage, research, and rescue operations. Vehicles were parked near the main structure. A radio antenna rose above the roofline. The place was quiet, but not asleep. The lion stopped just beyond the reach of the lights. He lowered his head slightly, as if listening. Inside the station, a ranger named Elias Cohn adjusted the collar of his uniform and frowned at the monitor in front of him. The motion sensors along the eastern perimeter had triggered, but not with the jittery movement of scavengers or the familiar rhythm of antelope. This was heavier, slower. He reached for his binoculars and stepped outside. The night air was cool, the stars sharp overhead. Elias scanned the darkness, then froze. A lion stood at the edge of the clearing, not pacing, not roaring, just standing there. And then Elias saw the second shape. His breath left him in a sharp, silent rush. On the lion's back, clinging to the mane like it was carved there, was a baby gorilla. For several seconds, Elias could not move. Every protocol he had ever learned screamed at him to retreat, to sound the alarm, to grab a rifle. But the lion did not advance. He took one slow step forward, then stopped again, lowering himself carefully to the ground. The infant stirred. A small whimper escaped his throat as he lifted his head, blinking against the floodlights. His eyes fixed on the nearest human. He reached out instinctively. Elias raised both hands slowly, deliberately, showing empty palms. His voice, when he spoke, was barely louder than the wind. "It's all right," he murmured, though he had no idea if that was true. Behind him, others emerged, 2 veterinarians, another ranger, a medic. No one spoke. No one moved quickly. The scene before them defied logic. A lion delivering a gorilla infant to humans was not a scenario any training manual covered. The lion remained still. His sides rose and fell with controlled breaths. His gaze moved from one human to the next, measuring, waiting. The infant slipped from his back and dropped clumsily onto the ground. He stumbled, caught himself, and toddled toward Elias. Halfway there, he stopped and turned back. He looked at the lion. The lion inclined his head, just once. That was all. The baby continued forward, and Elias knelt, heart pounding, as the small body pressed into his chest. The infant clung to him with the same desperation he had shown hours earlier beside his mother's body. Elias felt the tremor beneath the tiny ribs, felt how light he was. Behind them, the lion stood. Then, without drama, without looking back, he turned and walked into the darkness, and a roar marked his departure. No claim of territory. He disappeared as quietly as he had come, leaving behind stunned humans and a life that should not have been spared, but was. The silence afterward felt sacred. The infant gorilla was rushed inside. He was dehydrated, traumatized, but alive. His lungs were strong, his heart steady, no broken bones, no internal injuries. He cried when placed on a blanket, then fell asleep almost immediately, exhaustion finally winning. Over the following days, the truth emerged. Rangers found the mother's body where the infant had left it. Poacher wounds. Clean, efficient, illegal, ruthless. The infant had stayed with her for nearly a full day before leaving, far longer than most young animals could survive alone. Tracks told the rest of the story. The lion had arrived after her death that he could have eaten. Instead, he chose something else. Why? No one could say with certainty. Some believe the infant's fear triggered an instinct buried deep within the lion, an echo of lost cubs, perhaps. Others argued it was simple chance, coincidence layered with survival. But those who had seen the lion's eyes that night knew better. This had been a decision. The infant was named Keto, meaning precious. He was transferred weeks later to a protected sanctuary where other young gorillas lived, where caretakers mimicked maternal behaviors, where healing could begin. He grew stronger, curious, playful. But there was one detail the staff never failed to notice. Whenever a large cat's silhouette appeared beyond the fence, lion, leopard, even shadow, Keto did not scream. He watched, calm, alert, as if remembering something important. Years later, deep within the savannah, a dominant male lion was observed near the edge of a gorilla territory, an unusual overlap. He did not cross into it, did not hunt there. He simply rested beneath an acacia tree at the boundary, watching. When a young gorilla approached the edge of the forest and met his gaze, the lion lowered his head and turned away. The wild does not keep records. It does not explain itself. It does not justify mercy. But sometimes, rarely, it reveals something that reshapes everything we think we know. That survival is not only about teeth and hunger. Sometimes, it is about restraint, about recognition, about a moment when a predator chooses not to be one. And somewhere between the blood-stained earth and the lights of a human outpost, a lion made a choice that saved a life and quietly rewrote the rules of the wild.